We're going to take a look at section 3, part 2A, determine command, chain of command. So what we're looking for here is, are your leaders within the chain of command? It tells us to look at 4.2. 4.2 tells us there are 4 levels of command, from overall commander down to brigade/regiment leader. That word gets used interchangeably, brigade and regiments. But really it's 4-star, 3-star, 2-star, 1-star. And what we're trying to figure out is, have we satisfied chain of command to give us some game benefits? And if we haven't, then our army's a little less efficient. The game has ways that it makes that happen. So how this is measured is, we're going to look at the command rating right there, command range rather, and it's a black circle with a white number. And that tells us how far can Jackson's command influence, extend to connect to his subordinate leaders. It tells us to look at 4.15, which is going to tell us to measure this in MP, so movement points. And what you want to look at is the terrain effect chart for the battle you're playing, and that will tell you how the hexes in the game impact the movement range. There are some caveats here. You cannot trace through a hex or hex side if it's impassable for leader movement. You cannot trace through a hex adjacent to an enemy unit unless you're piggybacking on your own friendly combat unit. And then you can use friendly units to extend your command range. Let's go back down to 4.2. And so what it's going to do is tell us is that you need to connect all these guys. And I've got an example we're going to use to kind of make this a little easier to understand. But that's what the wording is going to tell you, is that, hey, you need to connect everybody. And if you don't connect them all, then they're going to be out of command. And so we'll talk about that as well. But let's take a look at our little example here. So this is from Cross Keys setup. This is actually the beginning of the battle, but we're going to pretend it's turn 2. And the reason that matters is standard rule says that at the beginning of any battle, everyone's in command. If you're on the furthest corner of the map away from everybody, they're still in command at the start of the battle. Really, the thing you want to take away from here is the battle book overrides the standard rules constantly. So knowing the standard rules is important for access to the game, but just be ready that whatever you read in the standard rule and became gospel for you, the battle book is likely to override it. So for example, this is Death Valley is part of the Cross Keys campaign, and rightfully so, because of that phase in the war. Cavalry act very different. So Union cavalry activate very different than Confederate cavalry, and none of that's in the standard rules. It's all in the battle book rules, and that's what makes the game kind of cool and unique. All right, so what we're looking for here is we're going to start drawing command. So Fremont, for this battle, he is going to be acting as both our overall commander and our corps commander. So we're just going to measure from him to Blinker. Blinker is one of his division commanders. Fremont also functions as a division commander for this battle, which is a little unique, but again, just an example that the battle book will help simulate what actually happened in real life. So we're going to make some TECs up here, because I can't remember Cross Keys off the top of my head, and I don't have it handy. So we're going to say that an open terrain hex counts as a 1, and roads count as a half. Woods, streams, valleys, whatever, all count as 1. So we're not going to worry about terrain, these terrain lines, which we can talk about later in other videos, their effects on the game. We're just going to say that basically everything's a 1 unless it's a road, and then it's a half. And that's kind of in line with what you see a lot of battles. So Fremont has a 6. So what we're going to do is we're going to go 1, 2, 3. So Blinker is good. And you count starting adjacent to the senior officer, superior officer, and then you have to go into the hex of the subordinate officer. So Fremont, Blinker's in command. Now we're going for Blinkers. So Blinker has command over Bolin and Stall, and you can see that they're both marked with the orange, and that's how you can tell. So we're going to try to measure to Bolin first. So let's change colors. So what we're looking for is blue, and we're going to measure from Blinker to Bolin first. So we're going to go 1, because each one of those counts as a half, 2, 3, 4. So Bolin is good. Now we're going to try to get to Stall. So we know 4 is to there, so 5 would be there. That's not Stall. So let's see if we can kind of maybe sneak down this way. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nope. So there's really not a way to get to stall. So stall will be out of command to blinker. And we'll talk about out of command means in just a moment. But let's finish determining our command ranges. So back to Bolin. We're going to change colors here. So we have the brigade leaders figured out, and we know that when blinker activates, Bolin will be in command and stall will be out of command. All right, now for Bolin. Bolin has the yellow highlighted. You can see that at the bottom of his, and then the cohesion numbers are all yellow, and that helps you know who's with him. So obviously all these guys are adjacent. This bubble is adjacent, and then the 75th PA is adjacent to the 74th PA. So all in command. And even if the 74 PA wasn't there, 75 PA is definitely within 4 of Bolin. Now this 4th New York. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to get to the 4th New York. They're going to be in command. So that satisfies Bolin. Let's go down to stall. So even though stall is out of command to blinker, he's not getting timely orders passed down to him from blinker. He have his own command tree that he is in charge of. So for these immediate adjacent guys, no problem. For the 27th and the West Virginia artillery, they both are in range to him with his 3, and they're adjacent to friends. The issue is going to be these 2 batteries over here. So we're going to try to get to them. You can't go, oh, these guys are all connected, then 1, 2, 3, look at me, I'm good. You can make an unbroken connection line, but as soon as the connection is broken, it breaks down. So what we're looking for is 1, 2, 3. So we cannot get command from stall back to these artillery pieces. So they're marked out of command. So what is the effect of out of command? Depends on the level of the leadership. So if blinker was out of command, when we build the AM pool, the activation marker pool, blinker would have 1 fewer activation markers placed in there to represent him being out of command. We'll go over this in a different video, but just as a summary for you now, high level. For Bolin and stall, when a brigade or regiment leader, brigadier, when they're out of command, what happens is when their division AM is pulled, they activate 1 fewer times. For individual units, when they're marked out of command, what happens with them is they activate 1 fewer times than their brigade. So what can very well happen in this setup is, let's say blinker is going to get to activate 3 times. So he's going to have 3 AMs placed in the pool. With Bolin, we'll get the benefit of all 3 of those activations, including all of the units underneath Bolin. So each time blinker's pulled, Bolin can activate and get all that benefit. For stall, he'll activate 1 fewer time. So in this made up example that there were 3 activations, he will only get to activate twice. And the 2nd New York and Dilger underneath stall will activate even 1 fewer time. So they're going to activate 1 time. The game does say it can never be less than 1 and can never be more than 4. There are battle book rules that override that, but that's a standard rule. All right, those are the effects primarily of being in command, out of command. The other one is the division order phase, which we'll go over in that video, but high level for you. When you're out of command, you cannot benefit from division order changes. And what is kind of buried in the rules is that 2nd York and Dilger, let's say they're under march orders right now, and Stahl turns his guys and he goes, okay, let's go into attack or advance. Let's use that. They go into advance orders. Well, the 2nd York and Dilger can't hear him. So they retain the original orders that they were under until they get back in command. Generally, command is checked at the end phase, except for that unique situation. If at any point in flight during the battle, that unit gets back in command, it will then immediately benefit from that command change. Oh, hey, you guys are in advance. Why am I still in march? And they'll change. All right, leave questions below. Thanks for watching.